What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I am Alex, and I'm joined once again with Sway, and we have a very fun live stream. Again, I keep promising I want these things to be events. Next week is going to be an event. Let me tell you that real quick. But this week is going to be a lot of fun. I have this idea, and I think I want to make these videos on the channel as well. But I thought, PlayStation, Xbox, the two titans. I would do Nintendo, but like Nintendo stuff just doesn't work on my channel. So, I mean, we could if we wanted to, but we're here to talk about PlayStation in 2024, the exclusives, the third parties, the console, the PS5 Pro, and then Xbox Game Pass, their exclusives, their third party stuff. And we're not doing it necessarily in the way of like who's going to win. I just thought it would make sense to, unite the fanboys right together in one thing. So, Sway, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, pretty good.
Are you ready? Which one? Now, I tried to be even. I told Sway before this happened. So I got the PlayStation background, and then the entire thing, is that so Xbox, I guess, is bigger. And I got to be real. I think Xbox could have the better year. I'll just say that one part, one comparison there. Which one do you want to start with, Sway? I'll let you decide.
I feel like we should start with PlayStation only
Okay.
because Xbox has so much momentum. I feel like that's going to be the longer topic right now.
Okay. All right. PlayStation it is. So PlayStation, I'll tell you. So here's what we'll do, I guess. Let's kind of give like an overview of how we kind of predict, the year will play out in terms of like strengths and stuff. And then we'll look at, specific examples, certain games, maybe if they come out. So how I see PlayStation is it's going to have to rely pretty heavily on not first party, right? And I don't think
Mhm.
that's like surprising. They are going to have a few things, but yet again, overwhelmingly, it's going to be the Helldivers of the world, the Death Strandings of the world. And although, that will be exclusive, obviously, Kojima, they're going to have to rely on the Stellar Blades and the Silent Hill 2 remakes of the world. Like, that's going to be PlayStation's kind of go to. Maybe a Spider-Man DLC. And heck, with the God of War thing that just happened, I feel like Spider-Man is more likely than ever, right, to get some sort of like weird spin-off thing. He's God of War freaking crushed it, and who saw that coming? So that's kind of how I see it. Is it going to be a good year? Honestly, like I think it'll be fine. It's not gonna match, Spider-Man, and then you had, Horizon and God of War, and those are pretty good sellers. So you're probably not
Yes.
gonna match that in terms of like the ecosystem, but it's gonna have its stuff. Like if you're just playing on PlayStation, Stellar Blade for me is kind of, my go-to one. Silent Hill could be potentially the biggest, right? Like
Yep.
that's such a big game. So PlayStation, I feel like, is looking pretty okay, but not spectacular. And that PS5 Pro, I can't say I'll be buying it, at least at launch. Because,
No.
I might, especially like depending on how long we do this generation lasts, maybe I'll get it. But the rumor is $600, right? So $600 next fall doesn't sound like it's for, especially because like next fall is probably the next Nintendo console. And we have to get that, right? Even for like the
Yes.
family. So PlayStation's, out on that end. So what do you kind of see for PlayStation?
I'm kind of looking at it similarly, honestly. I don't think by any means it's going to be like a bad year for them. I think that this is just going to be a and I can already see like people will judge like an okay year for them as
Yeah.
like, oh my god, look at them, like they did horribly, like let's calm down here.
Yeah.
It's they've done so exceedingly well for such a long time that I think that it's a testament to them and their quality
Yeah.
that a okay year is like a bad year for them to
Yeah.
most people.
Yeah.
But like this year alone, like they had one title and they pretty much did what we're saying they're going to do next year, which is rely on third parties for the most
Right.
part. That was pretty much them this year with like they relied on. They had 2 or 3 games come out for them this year for
Yeah.
Spoken,
Yeah.
um, Final Fantasy, and Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that honestly speaking, like they're not in any bad shape, but it's just like the tweet that I put out the other day where it's like the shoe is on the other foot. And this is
Yeah.
something I've kind of been talking about all year. So I
Yeah.
think that they're by any means not in any danger, but it's gonna be an okay year for them. I think
Yeah.
that
And
it's
I've
gonna be
actually I
nothing
can't believe I
crazy.
forgot Final Fantasy 7 remake, right?
Yep.
That
Hmm.
Helldivers comes first. But in terms so I believe it would go Helldivers, Final Fantasy, Rise of the Ronin. A pretty good start. Like a pretty good
Hmm.
first. They almost got a game a month, right? and
Yes.
then probably slows down. But again, like you don't know about the Spider-Man kind of, if they do a DLC that could almost single-handedly, make something of it. Wolverine, I'm very much just not saying is happening.
2025.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing, right? Because 2020, I mean, if you really want to go ahead, 2025 with Wolverine, and that's probably Ghost of Tsushima's year, things like that. Naughty Dog has been put in this weird situation where, you're not going to get anything from them until you. Well, it's actually Last of Us Remastered. They do have a game every month, don't they? Because Last of Us Remastered is
Yep.
January. So I guess technically the first 4 months of the year, 3 months, they got a game kind of lined in. But yeah, in terms of like Naughty Dog's next big game, there's 2 wild cards, and it's Bend and it's Blue Point. And we haven't seen anything from either of those in incredibly, long time. So we also know, is it Nixes? I think that's how you hopefully say it. They're the PC kind of, and there was that
Yep.
on their website. Remember how they're both now doing like PC ports, but they're also doing remasters. They're like a remaster studio. So, hey, if you could give like a random Infamous or Sly or Resist, Sly, I just threw in there because of me, but no, if you did like a Infamous, I think makes actually a lot of sense. Just a
A lot of
weird
sense.
kind of remaster for one of your legacy franchises, Jack and Daxter, and put it out next fall. You can, make it work. And Death Stranding obviously is next fall's big thing, for PlayStation. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's all great points. I think that that's probably where you're going to see the majority of like them starting to push.
Yeah.
I do think that the Naughty Dog information was a smart move.
Yes.
Moving away from can't really confirm that they're moving away from live service, but that
Yeah.
just seems like that is the direction that they're going, and we're probably going to hopefully get a new IP out of it,
Yeah.
or maybe something like a progression of another IP that they already have. But I
Yeah.
just think that that's a smarter move versus trying to work on multiplayer for a
Right.
game that's been out for a while now. I think that those are moves that is a healthy direction for the company to go in. And if I'm a PlayStation fan,
Yeah.
I like hearing that.
Yeah. It's a lot of unknown because, Bend, you don't know when that happens, Blue Point, but also Naughty Dog making 2. Santa Monica, right? Like you still have a mystery game there, right? So you
Yes,
have Cory Barlog's game. So you got one there. Um, any team that you could maybe like Insomniac, like when does their multiplayer game, kind of come out? And I'm sure there's other third party stuff. The issue is, I guess, even just in third party in general, like when you think to Persona or even like Kingdom Hearts, like maybe PlayStation works, the Square Enix kind of thing works out something there. Well, a lot of those games are 25, 26, right? So I think a lot of the third party stuff we might already know about, and that is the Death Strandings, the Final Fantasies, right? Like we already know going into the year. Actually, one other one that I thought of is, I don't remember the studio, but like Astro's Playroom and that team, Asobo, I think is how you.
yep,
Yeah, and they've been working on a game for a long time. They've been building up, and I'd love to see like a full on, Astro, like a
same.
huge game. That'd be freaking
Like an
nuts.
actual full game,
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
like a demo. We need a whole game. That's something I've been wanting for
I
a
think
while.
Astro's Playroom is, and I've thought about doing this for the third channel. I think it's still one of like the top 5 PS5 exclusive games that are out. Like it's just
For
so,
sure.
you
So
know,
fun to
the
play.
legacy, and it uses the controller, I think the best that any game has ever done, which
Yep.
I can't believe I'm saying that because here we are in year 3. It's the same thing with like the Vita. You get like one good game that takes advantage and then like no other game does it. I should have probably asked. I mean, you guys are giving us content to talk about in the comments as well. If you have anything specifically, concerns for PlayStation, questions, games that we're forgetting, let us know. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll read the comments. We'll go like another 10, 15 minutes just with PlayStation, and then we'll do
Switch
Xbox,
to it.
okay? So all PlayStation stuff for now, and then we'll do Xbox after. Do we know, like the Xbox One was leaked, right? In terms of what it
Yeah.
looks like. We don't know what the Pro looks like, do we? Or maybe I don't remember.
No, not that I can remember. No images of the PlayStation 5 Pro. Only like rumors here and there about like the specs of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've settled into how the PS5 looks. I think the PS5 took a lot of smack when it first was shown. And I got to be real, it kind of looks cool. I've always been a fan
Same.
I gotta say, in terms of like a console fanboy thing, I like the Series X. Like, I actually like how it looks, and I think there's something kind of like compact about the Xbox like One, like that kind of generation. But I've just always liked like the PlayStation consoles are just kind of. I don't even know if they look all that amazing, but they're like wild. Like they're just so
Yes.
weird to look at. Um, the PS4 I think was probably the best looking one, like just that rectangular kind of. PS5 looks like it's from outer space.
I was just about to
PS3,
say that. It looks
yeah,
futuristic or something like.
yeah, yeah. PS3, the fat one, that one was wild, and then the skinnier
Yes.
PS3, the slim, and then PS4, those are pretty comparable. But I've settled into how the PS5 looks, and don't change it. Honestly, don't change it.
No. I mean, even
Um,
the side plates of it all, and like being able
yeah,
to like it opened up a door to not have to buy an entire console
yeah,
to get a special edition of a system. Like
right,
I am all for that.
yeah, yep. I used to, in the PS4 or 3. I have it. I have Uncharted 4. Like you have to do the stickers, like those
Yep.
like hardcore stickers that would do it. So, um, yeah. I have a PS5 and Series X. Can't afford another console. Oh, trust me, I get it. I understand. Naughty Dog was gate kept by Sony single player fans from making The Last of Us Online. Yeah, I like I said, I think where I've come to is I think there's been a lot of like good back and forth with the Last of Us cancelization thing. Why couldn't they have just done a simple multiplayer mode, right? That's kind of where I'm
Mhm.
left with. Like I agree with their decision. I think they made the right call. I look at it potentially that maybe Sony is smartening up and saying maybe we shouldn't go all in on live service, and I think that's the right move. But
Yes.
yeah, if you're looking at it from well, I want it, right? I want The Last of Us multiplayer. That's fine. I think factions is great. So yeah, why couldn't they? I guess here's what you would do. You wouldn't do The Last of Us remastered. You would take that roguelike mode and you'd put it into and like that would be your multiplayer. You could play with other people. You'd have a team deathmatch, and that's literally it. And I think people would have accepted that. And I think that's kind of what makes people don't let me put words into other people's mouths, but I think that is maybe what makes people mad, right? Is we're this close. We were this close to getting just like factions too. And then they decided to like go too big, and that's where it all. But I don't think Naughty Dog made a lot of those calls, honestly.
No, I don't think that they did either, and I think that the reason why they probably just chose to scrap it is just look at where the IP of The Last of Us is now,
Yeah.
and you don't know how it's going to play out when season 2 comes out because
Yeah.
you know Pedro Pascal is only scheduled for 4 episodes.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So
Oh
you
boy.
you don't know
Yeah.
how the winds are going to change with this IP in general.
Yeah.
And they're like, the last thing we need is a live service element, which is already not too popular amongst the gaming community in general,
Yeah.
from the masses of it at least.
Yeah.
It's not too popularly looked upon. So they probably looked at it and said, like, this could possibly be brand damaging depending on how people look at the IP going forward. So I think that
Yeah.
was more than anything probably the leading thing of like we will permanently hurt this Last of Us franchise if we
Yeah.
do this.
Some would argue they've
Yeah.
already heard it going back to Last of Us 2. And we've talked about 1,000. I think The Last of Us has been fractured since part
Yes.
2, and there's nothing you can like. You literally just have to live with it. You just go
It's
forward.
controversial.
Yeah, yeah. Which if that's what they wanted, which I don't think it's honestly what they wanted. The Batman, what's going on? See, I mean, I think that's just exaggerating. The worst year ever for them. This year had Spider. Like, are we missing any? Spider-Man, Final Fantasy, and Forspoken. Is there any
Mhm.
others? There's got to be. That's it. Those are the because Forspoken was a bomb, both critically and commercially. Final Fantasy
Mhm.
16, we've heard so many stories about how it didn't sell all that great, or at least people perceive it. And then Spider-Man did well, but Spider-Man was actually pretty divisive as well. So you could argue this year wasn't all that. In fact, I would go so far to say, this is a controversy. I think next year might be better because I think
Yeah.
Helldivers 2 is going to be really good. Helldivers 1's great. So there's Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, lock it in, right? Like
Yes.
that's going to be good. Death Stranding is just going to be Death Stranding, which you
Yep.
either love it or
Like
you're
it
not
or you
into.
don't.
Yeah, Stellar Blade could be a surprise thing. Silent Hill could either work or not. There's 5 Rise of the Ronin, Last of Us like right now we're at more. Now I gotta be forgetting. Have people like maybe corrected me? Are we forgetting any this past year? Because right there, that's 7, and this year had 3.
3.
So I don't know. Nobody's correcting me, so I'm just going to assume
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah, like 3. Those are the 3 that I remember for sure. And I would even think then, like I said, like with Spider-Man, even Spider-Man had like a honeymoon phase where it's like the first week
Yeah.
it was the greatest thing ever, and then like after that first week, it was reality setting in,
Right.
and so it was like I feel like it in a lot of aspects came up short when people started to really digest it,
Yeah. Yeah. There's
and
not.
I think
There's nothing.
Final Fantasy was their strongest title this year. In my honest opinion,
Oh
it
yeah.
just didn't do great sales wise. And I believe that like with Spider-Man, because it has that Marvel IP and Spider-Man is one of the biggest IPs in the world, that is what propelled those sales more than anything. Not to mention the hard work that they did in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So I think that there was a lot of, but I think the most quality product that PlayStation put out was hands down probably Final Fantasy. It just performed probably the second worst out of those 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking. Chia, which is very small. That's a very I like that game a lot, but it was very small. Um, KOTOR remake, which didn't happen. Yeah, no, like this year actually was pretty. Yeah, so I don't buy that. Like I think that's exaggerating. And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
there were worse years.
Oh,
2020 was
for
actually
sure.
2020 was good. 2021 had like nothing. Like 2021 was Guardians of the Galaxy, Life is Strange, It Takes Two. So I can't think of a PlayStation. Was there even a big PlayStation game in 2021? I don't think so.
No, not
So
that I can
that
think
would,
of
I
off the
would
top of my
say,
head.
be the worst one of the last 4 years. At least this one will have Final Fantasy and Death Stranding.
Now, here's something I thought about
Go ahead.
that could change the year for 2024.
I'm ready.
Because this could either move things to 26 or 24. But I seen
Okay.
Grand Theft Auto in the chat,
Oh yeah.
and I'm willing to bet that there are a lot of developers and studios that don't want to be anywhere near that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they might push games up, whether they've been like announced publicly for their release dates or not,
Yeah.
or they may push them further back. But I just can't see too many games wanting to exist in the same year as Grand Theft Auto. Like
Yeah.
very rarely where you hear me say like, well,
Yeah.
because games have a time slot, you know what I'm saying? So they come out
Right.
either in the beginning, middle, or end. And I believe that as long as you space yourself out far enough apart from them, you won't be bothered. But like Grand Theft Auto is probably
Well,
the only thing that's going to bother that.
I don't remember who I did this with, but I actually looked at GTA 5. And so GTA 5, or yes, 5. I forget the number. GTA 5, 2 weeks before it was Diablo 3. There was no other game 2 weeks before it, the week before it, the week of, and then there was nothing else big for a full month, 1 month. So yeah, when GTA 6 comes out, say, and that's tough because I mean, if it comes out in like October, you have to release games in the fall.
You
So
have to.
you need to give it a full month. So if it releases in the middle of October, you do not release your game beginning of October or the end. You have to do it in
Nope.
September or November. So yeah, I would honestly say they would all be delayed, right? I don't because of all the stuff in the gaming industry. I can't imagine many studios would feel good about saying, "Well, we'll just rush them. We'll have them rush to do it." I'm sure there's probably some, but they would get called out, and like we would find out
Absolutely.
who did it, and that would be bad. Um, okay. What's the biggest game of 2024? I like that question. Assassin's Creed Red. That game will be a launch title for the PS5 Pro. That's a good theory. The biggest game of next year. Um, Final Fantasy would Final Fantasy can't like I think Assassin's Creed would outsell. It depends on what you mean, you know. If you're talking about the
I mean,
highest selling game,
yeah.
then
I
Assassin's Creed or COD. Is COD doing one next year? Oh, you know what? We commonly forget, but the heavy rumor from even Tom Henderson is Battlefield would be next year as well. So Battlefield can sell 7 to 10 million units. So that one would be a
not to mention
bit.
Nintendo, whatever launch
Oh
title
yeah,
that they got, they always come with something strong. And like
yeah,
I'm willing to believe that the title that sells the most next year probably isn't even announced yet. Not to mention that this year you had Call of Duty and Hogwarts Legacy outsold everything. This is the
Right.
first year that a game was the highest selling game that wasn't a Rockstar game or a Call of Duty game.
Yeah.
So I think that there is
Which
a
we
lot of
saw
room.
coming. We saw
Yes,
coming
we saw it
miles
coming.
away. I just like to say that out
Pat
loud.
ourselves on the back
Yeah,
here.
I can't believe the people that are surprised that Hogwarts Legacy did so well. But no,
We said it all year.
that's a great point. If they launched with a Super Mario blank or even like an Odyssey 2, that would be the highest selling game of next year. Yeah, biggest game. That's a great question though. I like that as a discussion. Assassin's
That's a
Creed
whole
Red.
topic.
If you mean like impactful, oh man, like Wolf Among Us might be my most. I'm gonna do a video of like ranking them all, but we don't know so many of them. Of the
Yep.
games like locked in, Hellblade 2 for me or Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth would probably be my top two. But like, if Wolverine sneaks in, Silent Hill would be up there. Wolf Among Us would be up there if it actually is happening next year. So yeah, it's a lot of like freaking mysteries. Stellar Blade would be high. Yeah, don't worry. I wouldn't worry about those games because they won't happen. They won't be in their way. Don't worry. My biggest game for 2024 is Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Yep. Avowed, I think, can be big, but it's not going to be bigger than like Starfield. So
No.
even though it could be better because of
Yeah. Quality.
Since they revealed the GTA 6 trailer, yes, of GTA, yeah. The most underrated Sony game of 2024 is Tower. There was a couple games that I saw from PlayStation that are coming out next year that either I can't pronounce or were more like kind of deep cut, like indie kind of stuff. This would be one of them. You got to remember that too. Like they will both have at least 2 shows of next year, like Xbox, and PlayStation. So I like you just said, there's very likely games that we don't know are coming that are
Yes.
coming, or, that will be released, that we probably won't even see until like March, April, May. So yeah, Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, Sega should join forces to make a super console. Oh my god, that'd be epic.
That would be.
They would never
No.
work together, but all right,
Companies can't sacrifice.
yeah. Spider-Man was kind of forgettable for me. Like for Ragnarok, it stayed in the forefront of my mind. And Ragnarok and Valhalla just came out of like freaking nowhere.
Nowhere.
Nick, what's going on? I'm kind of worried about PlayStation exclusive games. Yeah, there's that game with the money sign in it. Remember that game? And I
Yep.
think that game is supposed to be 2024. So like you could get that. I guess to end this, because we're approaching the time we should swap over to Xbox. Like live service. What do you think? Give me a prediction. What do you think like PlayStation's move is gonna be? Like, what do you think you're gonna see? More announcements, like release dates, or do you think they back off of it? What do you see like in the entirety of 2024 just for live service for PlayStation?
So when they announce, we got to keep in mind that when they announce something like, they're gonna go more towards the live service route, those conversations were probably happening and like projects were probably greenlit months, if not years, before we even got the announcement. These are
Yeah,
something that they're probably talking about a well in advance. So there's probably a lot of things that they probably put money into already that
right.
might release. And even if they change it, pivot towards something else, those projects still either got to release depending on how far along they are. And I believe that we see a little bit of it, but I do believe that they will scale back. I don't think that it's gonna be like this onslaught of like
Yeah,
live service titles. I think they're gonna put some out there, test the waters, and
yeah,
then go from there.
yep, yeah. I think you're right. I think the way you'll know has to be the next PlayStation showcase, because this
Yep.
past one, what 70%, like it was just live service game after another, right? So like this one, if they announce say Ghost of Tsushima 2 and Ben's game and all this stuff, and it's just heavy, on story. There's a remaster there, Blue Point's doing a remake, whatever. I think that's how you would tell, because it's very clear from their last presentation that they wanted to just throw it all out in front of our faces, and I don't think it worked. I don't think it worked.
Not
Um,
at all.
there's not a, if one thing can be said, Sway, is that I will never forget about Pragmata. I'm the one man on YouTube that'll still cover this game. Um, PS5 is my favorite look. Series X just kind of looks like a box. 360 looked better. I've gotten into the Series X too, the way it looks. I thought it kind of looked silly. I thought the PS5 looked silly too when they were both. This is the weirdest looking one.
Generation of consoles,
Yeah, I
I
feel like
think
in a
we've
long
gotten
time.
after I bought my I bought the Xbox Series X refrigerator.
Oh yes,
And I think after I got that, I was like, I have a new appreciation for this thing. And I
yeah,
think that that was more so a the gaming community kind of like mocking both consoles,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
kind of ended up appreciating them because of it.
Yeah, I love that they did the refrigerate like that. Yeah,
Yes.
that took real like kind of knowledge of the situation. I like that a lot. Um, I don't know. I'm not like calling boycott activity out. I don't know what it's referring to. I just generally am not a fan of lives. Like that's all. Don't
Yeah.
take it to heart in general. Um, and he's right. Like he said earlier, like most successful multiplayer games right now are live service. That is true. And as I constantly say, the issue, like my main thing with live service is time. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough of people's time. And if you want
Yep.
like 80 live service games to be working at once, that's not how it works, right? Because you
It's not
can't
going to be sustainable for the
yeah,
industry.
yeah, you can't tell a person to play a game every day. And that's what a live service game is play a game every day.
Yep.
You could, and there are people, but now tell that same person to play 7 live service games every day. And you can't do it. And that is literally the crux of my argument for years that you cannot do that. And so for every success story for live service like COD or Dead by Daylight, there are 500 that have like that fail and get shut down within like a month or two, right? Because nobody plays them. Because you can't all be successful. You can be
Yep.
successful if you do not that, right? Because you can play it whenever. So that's just that's always been my crux of the and I'll take a Twisted Metal live service game. I wanted the Last of Us factions. Like I said that multiple times. I wanted
I
them.
think live service can be done correctly. I don't I would never like it to the extent that other people like it, but I always feel like Halo did it the most tasteful way. Um, their their seasons are spaced apart. You don't have one every month.
Yeah.
They give you a chance to breathe and play other stuff. If more companies would do live service like that and also give you access to buy the seasons that you miss versus saying
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, if you miss this, you never get it again. You got to get it right now.
But
So they're
most
trying to
don't
get
do
you a
that.
FOMO.
Most don't do it. They just
Mm-mm.
like, okay. Yeah, but see, I don't
Yep.
play them. I've always wondered.
Yeah,
Yeah, they should. They should just keep a backlog of here's everything you missed, and here's a way of getting it all at once.
exactly. Like the Halo, you literally like season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You
Yeah.
can literally purchase anytime you want, and they never take it away from you. Fortnite or anything like that, you can't get those past battle passes and things like that. Once
Yeah.
they're gone unless they put the characters or anything like
Yeah.
that back up. So
Yeah.
I think that that's just if more games did it that way, I feel like a lot more people would be more open to it. I'd still be against it, like for the most part. Oh my God, Alexa, stop.
Alexa. Alexa,
Alexa,
what are you
stop.
doing?
Alexa, stop. We're all good.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, oh, that's funny. I was gonna say something, but I forgot it. I'll give this super chat. We'll finish up the comments and we'll go to Xbox. Will we really get PS3 backwards compatibility on PS5 in 2024? Number one, thanks for the super chat, buddy. Number two, God, I hope so. They've been. I mean, we constantly hear about the patents, right? That their work. Well, I don't think is it confirmed? I don't think it's confirmed. I think it was more of like a rumor, but there are patents for it that the emulation, in the console. Yeah, like
Yep.
come on, they've done the absolute bare minimum with PS1 and PS or like the classics, even like
Yep.
PSP games or I so wish they did more. There's a reason why PlayStation has this like established and that's why I didn't agree with like I don't fully agree with Phil Spencer's thing that it's so established for so long that you can't swap it. I think you can, but PlayStation does have a big history that they just don't ever freaking tap
Use.
into. Yeah, they
No.
never use it, and specifically with like the classics portfolio, it's pathetic. It's honestly kind of pathetic. So if they do PS3, yeah, they have a lot of PS3 games on PlayStation Plus. and I respect that a lot. But you have to do the cloud, like, and a lot of those games I own, I have them literally on PS3. So I don't know. I would rather like the Sly collection.
Yep.
I would never do it through cloud on the PS5. I would play on
No.
PS3. So
And it's a
yeah,
shame that they don't allow you to really do that at all, really.
yeah,
Like it's like even the titles that they tap into, the fact that we've had a remaster, a remake of The
yeah,
Last of Us, and they won't tap into any of their other titles
yeah.
is insane to me.
Jack and Daxter is dead at the bottom of a lake, and
It's gotta be
The
like
Last
it's
of Us is getting a Skyrim treatment. Uh, it's funny. But I honestly hope, because I would play. I think you'd have to like pull me away from it. I think you have to say, Alex, stop playing PS3 games and get back to the current day. 'Cause that's how much I would do it. Okay. I didn't say this in the beginning, and I can't believe I forgot. But can we like not do console warrior garbage and the stuff? I'm just skipping it. You're not going to get read by me with that stuff. But okay, let's catch up. This is a good point. There were PS VR2 exclusives. That is very true. And I want to, I want to eventually get it, but it's just way too much money. Just way too much for me. Okay. Let me catch up. Wolf Among Us 2 better, or I'm gonna riot.
yes.
Um,
Wolf
Hope
Among
this.
Us was actually my first platinum.
The very first. Wow, that's a good one. That is a good one. All right, I think we're good. I feel like we're okay. My router looks like a PS. That's hilarious. There's tons of console warrior stuff. Jump in. Okay, let's swap over. If there's any like pressing comment, we can read it. All right, Sway. The Xbox Series S and X. What? Where are you? What do you want to start? I gotta be real. Like Xbox, I think I can think of more on the top of my head. Sony relies a lot. It's gonna have to rely a lot on the third party
Third
stuff,
party.
which Xbox, you could, like last year, you could say they would rely on it because I think Game Pass with Activision Blizzard is gonna
Yep.
largely carry them. However, it's theirs now, right? So it's not third party anymore. It's first party. So do you want to start there? Like, do you have any wild predictions for Game Pass and Activision Blizzard, and then we can talk about the Avoweds and Hellblades of the world?
Game Pass, I think you're going to see all of like a good chunk of Activision's older titles make their
Yeah.
way over. I think that they're going to put the Spider-Man games on
Well,
there. I think that
I
they're
was
going
literally
to
gonna ask you, what do you think about Spider-Man and those ones? Yeah.
they're going to definitely put them on. They're going to utilize that. They're going to carry that over because they know how many, how much those games meant to a lot of people. I
Yeah.
think that games that they have under their disposal to put on there is just too good of revenue not to do it. They will.
Yeah.
I think also you're going to see a bunch of changes made with Call of Duty in general.
Oh, yeah.
I think that you're going to have we already knew that they wanted to lessen how much it comes out in general.
Yeah.
So I think that you're going to start to see them pivot with the Call of Duty brand and how they distribute yearly things with them. I think as far as the rest goes, there when it comes to Activision Blizzard specifically, it's no reason to unless like they got other things that they're working on already before the acquisition.
Yeah.
There's no reason to rush out new things when you stand to make so
Yeah.
much money off of re-releasing stuff on Game Pass. I believe that they will solely their job for 2024 is to solely fuel Game Pass and behind the scenes start cooking up a lot of new IPs or a lot of redemption stories for things like
Yeah.
Overwatch, for example. I think that's their market and that's their niche that they're going to go for next year.
Yeah. No, I think I like the line that you said. Like that's the push for Game Pass. Yeah, I think because if you think about it, Xbox, one of the things they've accomplished and done pretty well in the past years, right, is they'll pick a couple big ones. They'll pick a couple big games that are third party, and you say,
Yep.
oh, that's going to be on Game Pass, and that's big. Like at least to me, because it's like, well, I don't have to spend the money now, I'll do it on Game Pass. And even this past November, The Man Who Erased His Name and Persona 5 Tactica, the two biggest games for me in November, were both on Game Pass, so that was cool. So Persona 3 Reload is on Game Pass, so that is one.
Yep.
But if you think about it, as we keep saying, like 2024 is going to be a lighter year for gaming than this year and 2025, right? 2025 is going to be way bigger. So to rely for Game Pass to rely on just going after like the big third party, it's not really going to work. You know what I mean? I feel like most of them would have already decided by now, and you know they're not going to do the Game Pass thing. So yeah, where you're going to get most of your Game Pass fix is every month. Every month you drop like
every
two or
month.
three big one. You know, you do a Transformers month and you give me War for Cybertron. You give me that game for me, just for me. You do the Spider-Man games, and you know you have to do the licensing. You got to go back to you know all these different companies you haven't talked to in 10 years, and you have to ask. But I think those two, Spyro, you get Spyro, you get Crash, and then like you said, behind the scenes. And I would like to add not just new stuff, but you bring back Spyro the Dragon.
Yes.
You bring back Crash Bandicoot a fourth time or a third time or whatever number we're on. Yeah, I think that's really from them. I don't want a COD next year. And I mean, I say
No.
that as somebody who hasn't played them ever in the last like 12 years, but yeah, I think out loud, like through interviews or whatever, you've got to start fixing like the culture. And I'm not really a big culture guy, but like we know there's bad stuff. You can see like Blizzard is like stealing stuff in terms of like Diablo and all the trash behavior there. I
Yep.
gotta see that change. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so I would hope in 2024 we stop that. Otherwise, Xbox is now an enabler, right? Like you have to, they own them. You know what I mean? They're all under their umbrella. So you either cut the garbage of the $60 horse armor, or I'm going to say that Xbox is in on it, right? And they're
Yeah.
fine with it. There's no
Yeah.
other way
And
of doing it.
that's one of the things. Also, another thing that I'm honestly going to be looking at, just from a publicity standpoint,
Yeah.
is how do you treat Bobby Kotick? Because I mean,
Oh
that
yeah,
was the
yeah, yeah.
assumption, was that once that they bought the company,
Yeah, this guy's
a
out.
lot of this, this guy is out, and a lot of this behavior would, cease to exist. Because Xbox, for the most part, you don't really hear anything controversial too much from their studios, and I don't think that they want to invite that
Right.
behavior, because that's going to reflect on them at that point. So
Yeah.
I would like to think that we're going to see a lot of changes there. It would have to be, or else, like you said, like they're enablers,
Yeah.
and nothing changes there. So I think that that's one thing that we're definitely going to have to watch out for with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen, you know, I think there's some comments that I've seen like in videos and stuff. And it's like, you know, I don't want them to like, I think, yeah, generally you think about their studios and there's not a lot of like external, like you don't have, weirdly enough, you know, like the Naughty Dogs of the world, there have been articles written about like their crunch, right? Like Jason Schreier's favorite topic is crunch, right? But you like, I didn't see anything with like Bethesda with Starfield, and that game's
Nope.
enormous. Now, there was a ton of controversy with like the quality of Starfield, but in terms of like everybody getting along and all that stuff, you don't see that as much. So yeah, like if I still see horse armor for $60 by like June, I'm gonna be pretty mad. You know, if Call of Duty is still gonna do this 3-hour thing with their campaign, I'm gonna be mad because you have to stop. You know, like you
You have
can't,
to draw the line.
yeah, you can't do that anymore. Otherwise, now Xbox is in on it, and there's not much more you can say there. So yeah, I think Game Pass is gonna be big. Now let me ask you, out of the Avoweds, Hellblades, they, in terms of that stuff, they have an okay amount. Hellblade, Avowed, Stalker, right? There's a few. What are you like looking forward to, I guess, in that way?
There's so for example, this year, and I want to say the year before, there was heavy rumors for Gears.
Yes, I was gonna bring
And
that up. Yeah.
that is a forgotten title that nobody is thinking of because of the titles that we all know of.
Yeah.
And I think that that would be a dark horse right there for like something that can come up and immediately move money. I think that also they're literally stacking their chips up for like the years to come. Like just the Halo news about like them hiring for the next game now.
Yeah.
That is insane. Like it
Yeah.
is so much going on with Xbox that I think that right now, like Avowed is definitely my biggest one that I'm looking forward to next year.
Yeah.
But I think that I think they got some titles that they're hiding up their sleeve that we don't know about.
Yeah.
But I think that there's going to be it's going to have such a huge year, especially with the we've already seen how confident they were with when it came to like I think Summer Games Fest, where they were mocking
Yeah.
Sony for the titles and stuff like that. I don't think that your account does that. I don't think that you do that unless you have something up your sleeve for the
Yeah.
next year that you're just like you don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Gears is a good one because I didn't wanna forget that when talking about Xbox with, now I think the rumor sounds like it's like the Marcus Phoenix, like, they're going, like, the Master Chief collect so they're, naming it the person. That'll be pretty cool. Now I'm just
Yes.
like, I played Gears 1, I'm gonna be playing Gears 2 in the next couple weeks. Maybe I should stop because it's like, well, if you're gonna remake the first couple and then remaster the rest of them. Maybe, why am I playing them now if you're gonna, do that? I also didn't want to forget, so I looked it up. South of Midnight. That's that game from Compulsion, who made We Happy Few. That's the
I
one
forgot all about that one.
yeah. That game is supposed to be summer of 2024. So that's not going to be like ginormous, but that's definitely, and to be fair, if we're kind of comparing like sizes, I don't like how I said that, but if we're doing that, Hellblade is not the biggest thing in the world, right?
No.
Avowed isn't as big as Starfield.
Nope.
This game, is not going to be that big. What am I Stalker's somewhat big, but not like again gigantic. So this year, 2024 for Xbox, I think is going to be more like it
They're
is.
gonna have quantity.
Yeah,
You
and
just don't
yeah,
know about the
yeah.
quality.
That's I was trying to like figure out how to say that. It's going to be way more quantity than they had this time. But honestly, I think they could also have more quality. Like I think
Yeah.
because Avowed's smaller, it might be better. And I like Starfield. I'm not saying it. It might be better. Hellblade, I'm expecting like that game took forever. That game has taken them like 7-8 years. That game better be good.
I
Um,
think that that's gonna be the game that they're
yeah,
banking on to be like their biggest
yeah.
title next
I
year.
think that's like their Alan Wake, to be
Yes.
honest. Which means low selling, but like everybody who plays it loves it.
Loves
I
it.
think literally that's what they are doing with Hellblade. So yeah, I didn't want to like that's why I do think Game Pass is going to be very important because it's going to be better spaced out this year, I think, with their
Mhm.
releases. There's going to be more of them. There's going to be, with Game Pass, you're going to have older stuff mixed with new and all this shit. But they are going to, in terms of like magnitude, it will be smaller, right? Like Starfield. And even if you think to the future, like Indiana Jones, that's going to be massive, but that's not this year. There's
Nope.
no way. Um, when
And
Gears
you gotta
6,
think about expansions as well.
yeah.
A Starfield expansion,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that could
Yep, that's a
totally
good one.
roll out.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like go like way like really we know the stalkers because you can think of like Fable, that's not happening. Stay of Decay, that's not happening. Indiana Jones. So like a lot of those games, they're gonna have, I think, in the next few years, they will have like the big magnitude stuff like they had with Starfield. But I think maybe every other, like kind of these in between years, they'll have more stuff, I guess, in terms of flat out numbers. They'll probably have more than PlayStation, but it'll be, in terms of comparing it to Starfield or Indiana Jones or any of those, it would be, on the smaller side.
Agreed.
Um, is there any other? We'll read a bunch of comments after this now, but is there any? No, we're not saying it's not quality. Avowed, I think. Oh, I just said it. No, maybe that was an older comment. No, Hellblade. Don't get me wrong. Hellblade is like my second most anticipated game of next year. So, but I mean, you have to also think of like what's gonna like get people. Look, we just did this with Alan Wake. Like we literally just did this with Alan Wake is my game of the year. It is, I think, by miles better than any other game this year. It is sold pathetically
Yes.
bad. So the people talking about Alan Wake are this small bubble. If I contacted my five of my friends on messaging right now, they would not tell me that they know what Alan Wake is. Okay. So like there's a difference between what we're talking about and then like what do you go out to get an Xbox for? And I'll tell you, like,
Mhm.
you're not gonna get an Xbox for Hellblade 2. Like you're
No.
not. Just like you didn't do anything for Alan Wake or whatever. You're not gonna do that. You did that for Starfield. You'll do it for Indiana Jones. You'll do it for Gears. You'll do it for a bunch of Xbox, but not Hellblade.
Nope.
So yeah. Is there any
I
other
agree with that.
things you want to say before we read comments?
No, the Alan Wake one. I mean, I legitimately personally experienced that. When I was watching the Game Awards and I had like my friends in the group chat, and they're just like, why is Alan Wake winning so much? Like I've never heard anything from this game. Like,
Yeah,
how is it winning all of this stuff? And I'm just like, me on the other hand, like I look into everything and I'm constantly
yeah.
aware, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like this game was. I didn't play it for context. I didn't play Alan Wake personally because I didn't get it. I watched the game movie on YouTube.
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm
Oh
going to
yeah.
go back and play it myself
Yeah.
because I loved it that much, and I
Yeah.
know what happens already.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where it was like it's the contrast of like, wow, like the world does really not know about this game, but like
Yeah.
you know about this game.
Yeah. But and that's like again, like it's common. I think we have become way more aware of that as the years go on. And you need games. I think you almost need games like Alan Wake to come out
Yeah.
to remind people that we are in a bubble.
Mhm.
Like you're reminded of that like sometimes politically, like every like election year, you're reminded politically that Twitter is just like this echo chamber. And so that gets reminded, but in gaming, when you talk about the big games of like Spider-Man and God of War and then I'm not saying like just one side, any of these huge games, Halo, everybody's talking about it and then it performs. It's at the top of the charts. Everybody's playing it. Everybody has an opinion on it because it's big. It breaches it breaches more than just our circle. But you
Yep.
need an Alan Wake to kind of come in and everybody who, is into it is into it. Everybody loves it. But it's a small group because like we are small. And then you
Yep.
step outside of it and nobody even knows what the game is. And like it takes a game like that with that quality. You can't have a small game that's not that good remind people that. You need a game that's, impactful. So,
Yep.
yeah, but I don't take it. I could say that with like 20 of like my favorite. You think Sly Cooper is all that popular? You think Plague Tale Requiem? That game is definitely like a higher seller than Alan Wake, which is actually weird to me. But how many people know about a Plague Tale? How many
Nope.
really? You know what I mean? Sea of Stars, like all of these. Wolf Among Us. You think Wolf Among Us is going to go out there and sell like 20 million units? Like it's a
It's
lot of these
not.
games are important to us, but and that's fine. That's good. But it doesn't mean everybody knows about them, right?
And
Um,
even on that aspect, like the bubble with inside the bubble, like for
yeah,
example, console gamers
yeah,
don't generally respect tactical RPGs. They think that
yeah,
they're
yeah.
reserved for mobile games.
Yeah, there's a
So
lot
it's
of
just like
genre
even
hating.
without, yeah. So it's like even within our bubble, it's like okay, like
Well, with the Blade concept art, I learned a lot of people don't
yes,
like the look of Dishonored, and it's like,
nope,
what's wrong? Why are we doing this? I thought Dishonored always looked cool. I didn't know that was looked at poorly. I didn't know that was like a kid's look. Did you see that? There was like people
yeah, I've seen it.
like kiddie stuff. It's like, does that mean Sea of Stars is a kid like looking game because it's like retro, RPG? It's like, why are we doing this? um,
It's that's that thing of like people think that like realism is everything, and I think that realism dates everything.
oh
When you
yeah,
look
yeah,
at every
yeah,
game on the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation 2 that tried to go for a realistic look, how does that hold up today
yeah, yeah,
versus like ones that went for an art style? So
yeah,
I think that is just, we've seen that at least in every aspect of life. Like people who like animated shows,
yeah.
like you will have that audience that says like, well, this is a cartoon. Like
Right,
this
yeah.
is made for kids. So it's I while I seen it before, I didn't expect to see that with Blade, not in the gaming community.
Oh yeah, yeah. And see, I've come over like when I first started playing PS3, right? Like I played like the Crash Bandicoots and Slides of the world, like growing up. But when I first started PS3, and that was the one I jumped into, besides like Halo, Resistance and Infamous and Uncharted, and I remember thinking like these are the greatest looking games, period. But
Yep.
like some of them still look okay. But like, yeah, they eventually like I should have, and I do now. Like in the last several years, like Sly looks better than a lot of these games because it's
Yeah.
just the art style that they go right. And you just realize that more and more. Sea of Stars is not going to look dated, but
Nope.
Gears of War will, or whatever you want to say. And I think you kind of just need to see that happen. You need to see a game you thought looked so great that now really doesn't look that great. There's always going to be something, kind of special about it. But yeah. Okay. Let's see. I think I'm still in that period where we were still talking about PlayStation, but we can talk about PlayStation again. Make PS5 backwards compatible would be great. Although I have a PS3 and PS4 next to the PS5. You got you got the trio. That's epic. As an Xbox player, I really want to buy PlayStation games on PC. Oh, that's something we didn't talk about. I think that's a big move I think PlayStation can make.
They need to make it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a good year to do it. You have less coming out. Get some get. Why isn't Ghost of Tsushima on PC yet? That's a big one to me. Redfall, what a game. Um, Transformers, yes. They need to do the I'm glad I got the crowd in on that one. Let's see. That's looking really good for 2024 for Xbox. One thing I can't stand is timed third-party exclusives, and it bugs me that Sony is just bribing people to skip Xbox games to make. Yeah.
There's a core reason that I think that people who are a fan of like just gaming in general, I wouldn't be concerned about exclusives because you shouldn't want exclusives. Like if you are a PC owner, that is the best thing to be right now, where you get more bang for your buck. Unfortunately, because it's so expensive to start up, but getting an Xbox game day and date and being able to get a PlayStation game day and date, and the reason why I don't think that PlayStation wants to do that is obviously for one, financially, but two, what do we always talk about when we get a PlayStation game? The quality.
Yeah.
Now imagine if they had to develop a PlayStation version and a PC version that comes out day and date with each other, that quality goes down.
Yeah.
And that is what I think that they don't want. They live and die off of just being able to pride themselves off that quality
Yeah.
and being able to have console sellers and things of that nature. But you should want console exclusivity to die down as we go. That's
Yeah.
what we should want.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. It's just tough because it's built into the DNA of PlayStation, right? And
Yep.
then Xbox does compete in a way, and then they both kind of get sucked up into it. We need the X-Men games 2, Wolverine and Legends 1 and 2, Ultimate Alliance as well. Yeah. Yeah, there's a vast library.
Vast.
Prototype is Activision. And I don't think those games there is a collection of those, but I don't think they're on Game Pass. Avowed and Hellblade and Stalker 2. Yep. Jason Schreier does suck. Yeah, and Flight Sims is always doing like massive, unbelievable.
Any type of simulator they have doesn't.
Yeah. Fable, yeah. I think Fable we're gonna have to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this whole Xbox tax thing? I think as the last place contender, it automatically gets extra scrutiny, and a lot of publications are biased, but it's not this giant conspiracy. Do you have anything to say?
That before. I have a lot to say about that, only because it's the same thing you see with DC versus Marvel, where it's one side, like publicity wise, will get a certain treatment versus the other side. And that has to do with whether, like, who's aligning these people or these journalists' pockets, things of that nature. But there are a lot of things that you can look at. Blade, for example, right? Look at the fandom and how they're split, and how some of them are either refusing to accept the possibility that Blade can be a Xbox console exclusive, and others saying how it's not fair. They did it with Starfield, they did it, but let PlayStation do it. And it's like this whole, like, oh, it's only there. And we had actually talked, I mentioned this on the Spider-Man stream, actually, where I had said that Sony has no say in what game goes where, and how, like, it was always ludicrous to me how one studio would be responsible for making all of these games when they don't have any say in what goes where with this company and what characters go where.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see that when Blade was announced, this deal was announced far fewer ahead. And if I'm Microsoft, from a business perspective and a public perspective, why would you not make this exclusive when PlayStation has done it? And you're trying to even your perception to the public and as being on par with this company that's been dominant for so long. You can't fight exclusives with not having none, especially with, you can't not sell your console with
Yeah.
not having any. And so that is part of, the whole thing. And so when you look at the Xbox tax, I truly do believe that Xbox, now some of it is deservedly so. Also, I don't feel bad for them because I think that Xbox originally started the whole
Yeah.
exclusivity thing to
Yeah. They're
begin with.
literally, and people have argued PlayStation, I think, did it to Sega first. And then then Microsoft came in. Microsoft, all they had was, we need to compete, so
Yep,
we'll do it. And they started it, I think, against PlayStation. PlayStation maybe started the idea of doing it.
yep.
So yeah. I mean,
PlayStation lasted longer,
yeah, yeah.
and
I
I
mean,
think that
like
Microsoft
I don't
is
know. I'm at the
doing it.
point it happens. Like you
Yeah,
can complain about it. It's gonna like Final Fantasies. Just expect generally,
yeah.
just don't expect them to ever
PlayStation.
come next. And that's not good, but just like literally expect that. You know what I
It is
mean?
what it is.
Yeah. Just it's hard to say because I get it. Like money's tight. Money's never been tighter. I believe in the last at least like 5 to 10 years. So I get like saying just get both consoles. I get not everybody can do that, and people probably just want a level playing field, like just release games everywhere. Like it's not fair. Like the industry is
No.
just not fair in that way, right? Like the Transformers or even these Spider-Man games that come back, they might only come out on Xbox. And
Yeah,
if you're going based off of numbers, then Xbox would be doing it more than you'd have Marvel's Spider-Man placed, but you'd have like 7 Spider-Man games being Xboxes. So technically Xbox would have done it worse, but in
yeah,
terms of the numbers, right? So it's yeah, like I won't like it, but like that's just what happens, right? There's
yeah. No,
not
I
much, there's
100%
literally
agree.
not much you can do about it.
None whatsoever. That's why I don't really feel bad for either one of them. I do think that one of them gets judged more harshly than the other for even doing the same thing that the other does. But you can't really it's unfair, but it's the situation that we're in, like you said. And there's no real reason to feel bad for either of them because both of them have done it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm expecting nothing less than a huge jump in quality from Hellblade 2. Hellblade 1 is good for an indie title, but we need a buttery smooth combat and just more engaging gameplay. Yeah, this is the time to like join the big boy league, even though I think Hellblade 1 is already extremely good. That's why I'm so excited for 2, is I really liked 1. But yeah. I made the mistake of playing Hellblade without headphones, and then oh yeah, you got to. Then played bad
Yeah.
with good headphones, and damn, made the game. Yeah, yeah. I will say the quality of Hellblade 1 hinges that you have to have headphones. Maybe not good, but you need to hear the voices like in your own head. So listening to it on a screen, it is literally not as good. Like it's actually far worse than to do it. So, but that's just the way it is. I, f- I feel like Alan Wake is so popular, but that's maybe because I'm too big into games. Yep. Yep. That
It's
is true.
popular amongst us.
Hellblade was actually a PlayStation exclusive to begin with. So it's possible. I just don't see Hellblade 2. I mean, if you want to make a bet, I just don't see Hellblade 2 selling 5, 6, 7 million units. I just don't see that.
Word of mouth would have to do it justice in order for it to do that.
And it's here's the biggest thing. Here's your loophole is it's gonna be on Game Pass.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that people that play on Game Pass don't buy games, but if you want to talk about and like oftentimes we don't even know. Like, do we know Starfield's sell number? I don't think we do. I think we know
No, we
12
knew how many
million.
people played it.
Yeah, we know 12 million people played it, but we don't know. And I think it sold actually extremely well. I would say 4, 5, 6, maybe half of that I think was people buying it. But that is a big one. So Hellblade, if
Got
5
me.
million people play, oh look at that, like, you bought it. So if Hellblade 2, does 5, 6 million players, did they all buy it? No. Maybe you do half, maybe it's 70%, maybe it's 30%. It depends on the game, and oftentimes they don't tell you. So it is actually going to be kind of hard to figure that out. Oh yeah, Kingdom Hearts sales stomp Alan Wake into the freaking ground, which I'm okay with that. I do have to say, if I had to choose, Alan Wake is legendary freaking game. And honestly, as time goes on with me covering Alan Wake so much, it's becoming like a top 10 favorite franchise for me. like Kingdom Hearts, that's my childhood,
Special
right?
place in your heart.
Yeah, that's like I have a thing hanging on my wall right there, almost within reach. Like that's top 5. Um, an important thing to remember for Blade is that it can be unrealistic but still be super high fidelity. Think 4K high poly Sifu. Yeah, like it could be. I think it's going to be like Sifu mixed with Dishonored, that
Yep.
visual style. So
I think honestly, what we got from the trailer was more or less what we're going to get because what they released was just the concept art.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
right. And to this comment, that's the point. There's a difference between selling well and being good.
Yep.
And yeah. Um
They don't necessarily always go hand in hand.
no. No, in fact, I don't think I'd say maybe half the time they go. I think Alan Wake deserves as many units as something else,
Yeah.
or how Madden sells as much as it does every year makes me sad about humanity, right?
Yeah.
Like you tell people to stop supporting those kind of things. So, I don't know.
You're getting the same stuff every year with a new roster. They should
Yeah.
be literally giving you that as DLC every year. Like, hey, stop abusing yourself.
Yeah, yeah, you're literally you're I mean, they do it literally to themselves. I don't really care about exclusives. That's why I have both. Yes, yeah, and that's the way to go. It's really
If you can afford it.
if you can afford it. If you can afford it, have both. Oh, do you think Outer Worlds 2 gets gameplay next year? That's a good one. That when they announced that, and was that 2021 as well, or was that maybe it was 2 years ago, but maybe it was only last year. And I think when they announced it, didn't they say like they had only started it like within the last year before then? So that's
Yeah.
another one, kind of like Blade. Blade's actually been 2 years, but that's one that it's like, okay, I think it's going to be a while. So I would honestly say no. I think in terms of like announcements, like for PlayStation, I said like Ghost of Tsushima 2. I think like you have to announce that in 24. For Xbox, like Gears, even if that doesn't come out this year. But something like showing gameplay for Indiana Jones. I think
Yeah.
2024 is the year you see gameplay but you don't get the game. Which is still exciting, right? Because that's still, you get to talk about it. And hopefully it's free. Hopefully you get something like Wonder Woman, or that's not obviously first party, but yeah,
They could always do that with DC as well. Because I mean, I would like to think that Xbox has a better relationship with DC than Sony does.
yeah.
Just
Well,
off
there's
what we've
always been
seen
the
here.
rumors of
They were going to buy
Rocksteady,
him.
yeah, buying them. Yep. Xbox future looking bright. PS, I don't know, looking real spooky. I think PlayStation's is a whole lot less like unknown.
Yes.
Like to be genuinely fair and not, like pick favorites. Xbox, you
Yeah.
kind of know what you're getting. You know what you're getting like this upcoming year. You know what you're getting the next few because they've just announced so many. Game Pass, you can have like speculation. Sony is a lot of like kind of just wondering because it's going to be a lot of third party stuff that you don't know about until you get closer. And then their studios are pretty quiet. Like you don't know Cory Barlog's game. You don't know whatever is not The Last of Us 3. You don't know that game. You don't. They could buy somebody. They could buy Square Enix. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot they could do, but you just don't know what they actually will do. And I
I
think that
think
makes it kind of fun.
Yeah, it does. And Sony is somebody that I don't think they're making it up as they go. I think they have a plan. I think that we just
Yeah.
don't know about the plan. I
Right.
think the only thing with this question or the statement that you could possibly aim towards is the landscape itself, which is like a topic in itself. But depending on what happens with consoles,
Yep.
that's going to dictate if the future is looking spooky for Sony or not.
Yeah.
With Microsoft, I have no fear with them with like, if consoles went away. Nintendo's going to do consoles no matter what because
Yeah.
they don't even operate in the same space.
Yeah.
But Sony is the one that I would be concerned about if consoles ever cease to be a thing and they went straight PC. That's when I'd be worried because they might go into like just being a game studio and they would be less prevalent.
Yeah.
But outside of that, as long as consoles exist, I don't think that Sony has anything to worry about.
Yeah. Yep. And I think they're okay for the next. Like I think there is a PS6 clearly, and there
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
would be a PS7. But then
Yep.
after that, you're thinking like 15 years from now. That one's tough. The Sega trailer was totally acquisition bait. Ooh, that's it. Announcing 5 games at once is for investors. Microsoft has wanted Sega for years. We saw official images of the Sega Xbox leak to boost their Japan sales. Ooh, that's a great theory. That's a great. I just thought that was like them going for it, right? Like Jet Set Radio and whatnot. But they will get bought, like
Yeah.
totally. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's true.
I think Sony would probably be more aggressive with getting them. I think Microsoft would be a little less hesitant because they went through a lot of unnecessary stuff just getting Activision Blizzard.
Yeah,
So I don't think that they want to raise too many alarms by getting the acquisition that
yeah,
soon. So I
yeah,
think that if Sony wants them, this is their time to get them because if you wait like 2 or 3 years,
yeah,
they'll go ahead and buy them and nobody will look as nobody bat an
yeah.
eye.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sega's like literally right there, and Sony chooses Square Enix, right? They got their own
Mhm.
like love kind of relationships. We'll see. We'll see. Let's make the bet. It's gonna do 5 to 7. It might do 5 to 7 million players, but that does not mean sales. So that's
Yeah.
tough. That's tough. Do you think the PS5 Pro is the reason there's no PS game? No, actually, I don't, because it's like the rumor with it, right, is that it's really good at like upscaling things using like AI, right? So it doesn't change much. You know what I mean? Like it's really not.
Basically what the PlayStation 4 Pro was, it was just upscaling. It wasn't
Yeah,
even native, it was just upscaling.
yeah, yeah. So it shouldn't, it shouldn't affect it. I think it's just because games take. I think the reason would be that PlayStation literally has less studios, less like literal like amounts of teams that make games versus the competition, and they
Less
take long.
resources.
And that's not like a negative, or that's not like picking favorites. Like that's literally the case. They take very long to make, 4, 5, 6 years. And so when you have all of these games taking that long, you're gonna have those. Like it's just weirdly kind of how it goes. It's why like some years are better than others, right? Like a lot of these games just kind of flood in one year because 5 years ago they all started working on the game at the same time, right? But some studios started 6 years ago, some started 4 years ago, and that's where you get the um, overlap or the gaps in the years and stuff like that. So it shouldn't have anything to do with it. I thought it got announced in 2020 or 2021. Oh, okay, it could have been. I don't remember when. I feel like we've known about it for a long time. I think it was leaked before then, even when we saw Outer Worlds 2. So I do think Wonder Woman will get something. I really do.
Yeah, same.
Um, they all do need new IPs. The tough thing is you can't really talk about new IPs, right? Because
Nope.
like they're new, so like you can't predict what they're gonna be. Um, yeah. I totally agree with that though. Like there needs to be new ideas, and that's why I'm not like what have I said about Insomniac for so long? It's made me like unpopular. It's like I don't want them to just do Marvel games because I want them to.
Oh, we both
Yeah, no,
said
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think in the Marvel community, that's shunned. They want
No.
Insomniac to just make Marvel, which is fine. But I'm on that
I think
side.
this
Like,
Blade situation kind of alleviates that now.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, even them. But like we know, there's
Yeah.
also gonna be a Dishonored 3 because of that leak. So I wonder.
Yep.
I guess that's a while away then. Um, Obsidian wants one game per year, meaning Outer Worlds could be 20. Oh, okay, good, good. Problem for PS with me is, do we know what's coming? A third person over the shoulder game. It's really boring at this point. Yeah, they're definitely following a trend. I don't think it's not gotten boring for me yet, but I could see like how it upset somebody or eventually
Uh,
will.
I don't really mind not knowing what's coming because I'm at this point where I don't want products to be undone or unfinished to the point where like it's exciting when they get leaked, but once they get leaked, then it's like there's this pressure to announce it, and then once
Yeah,
it's announced, then there's this pressure to release it,
yeah,
and I just want these games to take as long as they need to bake. And I mean, we've seen it with Cyberpunk. It was over 10 years of development and it still
yeah,
wasn't ready. So it's
yeah.
like as long as they need, I would prefer if they got it cooking and they don't want to announce it yet, don't announce it. I hope it doesn't get leaked. I would love if it get leaked because I can talk about it. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Possible hot take: one Spider-Man 3 and the Spider-Verse game launch. I think Insomniac will leave Spider-Man alone, and a third-party dev takes over. The Question is if Sony keeps paying for their IP. It's good. Like, man, I wish we could see into the future. I wish we could see into the future for several reasons, but one reason would be I really do want to kind of fast forward 6 years from now to see like what happens with Spider-Man, right? Where it's like Insomniac can't do it forever. I don't think they would
I don't
want
think that they
to.
want to.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would. They literally wouldn't. But like, it makes you cannot stop. You can't. It makes so much money and it sells so many PlayStation consoles. How could Sony ever? Sony would step in, I think, and tell them, no, you will do this. But maybe, yeah, maybe they ship it off and they say, well, we'll keep paying. And, if you don't want to make it anymore, we'll let somebody else make it. But we're still going to have Spider-Man games are going to be on PlayStation forever. I just believe that now. I do. How
First
can you
I
let that
would.
money go? If you're Sony, how can you let that money leave you?
Oh no, I believe that they're gonna want to do it forever,
Oh,
even if
okay.
Insomniac doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
However, I think that I've just witnessed it with so many different things, and we kind of start to witness it with Spider-Man 2 even.
Yeah.
The oversaturation of the product.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to make money regardless off of it, but how much money you're going to make off of it is going to lessen with every title
Yeah.
and the decisions that you make with it. And one thing that I can cold-heartedly say is that like a lot of these Spider-Verse characters, with the exception of Miles who came out in 2011, have existed for decades.
Yeah.
And they have never been as popular because the Spider-Verse is popular right now. But the moneymaker is specifically Peter. And we've already got a little taste of that, like of what happens when you try to leave it.
Yeah.
That's not going to be sustainable for them. The Spider-Verse is not going to be sustainable for them. And I don't think the Spider-Man is going to be too sustainable for them either. They're going to have to pivot because they're going to oversaturate the product eventually. And you don't want to do that because then where do you go from there? And the
Yeah.
comic book industry is the biggest indication of that right now.
Well, do
So
you think Wolverine is almost Wolverine? I think could be like a test, right? Where it's like, well,
Wolverine
maybe
is needed.
right, where it's like maybe any Marvel PlayStation
Yes.
exclusive will do as well as Spider-Man 1 did. And then we don't have to oversaturate with Spider-Man. We can, we can do any super, which I think that's probably what Wolverine is going to test out, right? To see if it works. And I think it will work. I absolutely
I
think
think it
it'll
will
work.
work.
Yeah.
I think that more people will be more accepting of they need to go back to it's like I was talking to Greek about on his video we did.
Yeah.
The variety is what they need to attack. Comic books excelled when you were telling stories about more than one character. And it's just like my frustration with Warner Brothers and DC, how they pumped out so many Batman movies, but now you've got the culture accustomed to just only Batman.
Yeah.
And so when they tried to do something else, it wasn't gravitated to. You're gonna have to do that variety and tell the stories of those other characters and get them tell the stories properly so that way they hit to these audiences the way that they need to, so you can make those sales. And Wolverine is the step in that direction, and then you can tap into the X-Men from there. And the
Yeah.
X-Men is like half of Marvel's library in itself. So
Yeah.
it's just like, why wouldn't you? But like, depending on Spider-Man is something I would not do. You're going to damage the legacy and the markability and the profitability of that character long term if you keep going to the well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll leave it. I want to comment on this. I want to comment on this, and then we'll leave it here. I think here's what I honestly believe this. There's cycles in like everything, right? Like you go through
Mhm.
a cycle, and and people like accept it, and then you grow tired of it, and then it becomes old, and then you lose money, and you pivot to something else. I I think it's a little bit more nuanced in games, but I think right now we are in like the live service, like the boot, but really we're at the end.
We're at the end of it.
We are at the end of, and I think like to your point, I do not believe single player games are dead. Here's what I believe are going to eventually be dead: single player games that are 60 plus hours long. Those single
Yes.
player, because that is the cycle we are literally in right now. Live service was kind of created as this fast money maker thing, and everybody wants it because it's the gift that keeps on giving all year long, and obviously that's not working long term, so that's going to kind of end. Then with the single player stuff, they realized, okay, well, we can't just make these 10-hour story things. Maybe people were tired of that, right? The mid to late 2000s were all of that. So they started making, every game be a 40, 50, 60. Now, as I've said, like the Persona games, I think there's always going to be a place for things like that. That's just different. But when it comes to like the Horizons of the world, really, like that's a good example. Eventually, that bubble will burst too. So I do not believe single player game. I think eventually these 60, and it's literally, I constantly, like, it's what Sean Layden has always said. Like, it's real. You cannot keep doing this. So I actually think in terms of cycles, we will go back to that 10, 15 hour era. And I think we're going to do that in the next like 10 years. It's going to be back to the late 2000s, and we're going to get those kind of games. In fact, like Evil West, which was last year, 10-hour game. It feels like a PS3 360 game. I think there's a reason that they did that, because I think people because they missed that.
Yeah, I think they do mention it, and not to mention the reason why I wouldn't say single player game. I'm a big believer of like remembering history. How did that work out for Phil Spencer when he said that the first time going into the Xbox One era?
Yeah,
it didn't. It was factually proven wrong. He legitimately said no one plays single player games, and he had to walk that back because single player games was dominating the sales. It's like what Alex just said. Is that it's a cycle, and what's old is once new again. And I think that legitimately right now we're in a cycle where live service had its time. We're at the end of the live service time. And single player games not necessarily are dead, but the production cost to make them is due to how long they are. You're paying staff, however long you are, like however long they're working, that's money because the time is clicking and you got to pay them. Not to mention the things that you use to make the games, like the production cost of everything is going up because your time is going up. You lessen up on the time of these games, you lessen up on the budget of these games. That's shorter times you got to pay the staff for these games. So I think that honestly, like you said, like that's the future I think we see going. Like if you want to cut it off at like maybe 30 to 15 hours, you can do that. 20 to 15 hours, you can do that. But we're going to see a cut.
Yeah, it's good.
Except for Rockstar.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Like there'll always be the big 50 hours. There'll always be like Persona. Has to be 80 plus hours. That's how they roll. But it's not even maybe necessarily out of people are tired of it. I think people are, but it's more out of necessity. Like you cannot keep paying people for as long. You can't pay people ever increasing salaries, which is the right thing to do. I'm not saying like don't pay people money. You can't keep paying people inflation, all this stuff, so they have to be paid more. And you can't pay them for 7 freaking years to make one game. That is, it's not going to work. It will never work. Gaming was not built for that, No. So even if that's the right move, which I don't think it is, but even if that is the right move, it will stop. Like, just watch. Like, it will. And, yeah, I mean, there'll always be live service. There'll always be multiplayer. There'll always be mobile games. There's all this stuff, but I don't know. It's interesting. It's a good conversation, honestly. I just want good games. I don't care about the length. I care about the quality. That's another thing, though, that I constantly freaking bring up is...
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah. A lot of these longer games don't have... I think people have almost... I mean, this would be controversial. I think people have kind of like fallen into like some sort of like fooling act. Is a lot of these bigger, longer games are not better. No. I think the games of the late 2000s are better than many of the 60-plus hour games now because it's so much fluff. It is. It really, it's this, a lot, not all of the games, but I think there's plenty of games with like very simple, tedious tasks or whatever, and I think you don't need it. They simply put that in there to extend the length of time you play. That's my...
I think it has altered the... a large part of the fan base too, as far as how they approach games. Like to me personally, it's nuts that a lot of people don't care about the gameplay more than they care about how much content they get or how long something is, and how long something is or how much content they're getting post-release is more important to them than the game loop being fun itself. I believe that has also kind of ruined the mindset of the culture of like gaming communities in general. And good on the companies, because for them it's just making their monies, making them more money because people are thinking like that. But 100% agree with what you said. Like that all of that stuff needs to happen because all of that stuff currently exists. There's too much fluff in games. There's too much unnecessary things in games. And I don't even think that people really have fun with it. They just perceive something new as fun when it's not fun because then a few months later, they're like,
Yeah.
well, this is repetitive. This has gotten old. So yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah. I'll just say one more thing. I'll just keep going. I, to address this, that is true. But again, it goes to my point. Okay, how am I supposed to word this? I think okay, what were you gonna?
No, I was gonna say like Spider. I see Fortnite and Warzone and things like that. I only say that because though shooters are probably the biggest fan base in the gaming community, and Suicide Squad is made for shooters.
Yeah.
Which so when I see people say like, "Well, who asked for this?" or "There is no audience for this," I find it hard to believe there are not any
Yeah, you might get
superhero
some
fans
of
in the
them
shooter
over.
genre.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I'm.
yeah. All right. Well, what I was gonna say, that is true. That is true. It goes back. Go on Steam. Go on anything that tracks player count. You can't pay, like that comparison will only work for so long. Another
Mm-hmm.
way of saying it would be, okay, say like 100 medium-sized to big games came out this year that were successful. Okay, that sold. So like Spider-Man, Dead Space, SpongeBob, those. So they could be smaller like SpongeBob. They could be bigger like Dead Space, Resident Evil. I could list probably like 60, 70, 80 of them. When you go on and you look at these games that are live service that are still successful, it's not a long list.
No.
And they're from years. Dead by Daylight is in the top 10, and that game is 7, 8 years old. And that's one of the top 10. Fortnite is not from this year. Call of Duty did not start this. You know what I mean?
Nope.
So you might have one or two every year. But my point still is, well, number one, I just prefer. Like literally, it's my preference. I don't like those kind of games. But so I guess there's preference. But I think there's actually more successful maybe that's how I would word it. I think there's more successful single player games than there's successful
There
multiplayer
are.
games.
Yeah,
I
because
feel like that would be, I don't know that, but I feel like that would be true simply because you look at it and again, you say, well, what's the goal of all of these live service games is to have people play it
to
forever.
go on forever. Yeah, and I
So,
think that
so the
that is
games that die after 2 weeks, was that game successful? No. What about even a game that gets like 900,000 players the first month and then drops to like 50,000 after? Is that successful? It had a
no.
boom, but then it doesn't last. So like, did you succeed? I don't know how you want to classify it, but like I would say probably not.
No, I don't
So
think it's impossible to have more successes because once again, live service games last forever. So if there is a fail, it failed. The ones
yeah,
that succeed last forever. You can't give Fortnite like 5 years because it's been relevant for 5 years. You
yeah,
can't do that. So
yeah.
it's like Fortnite, Call of Duty, and really what else? Like I mean, outside you struggle to
There's like
start to think like
PUBG, yeah, Valorant. Like, I can think of a top 10. But like
it
when you
tanked
tell me the
it
58th
tanked
most
Overwatch.
played, yeah, over. But if you tell me or Dota, but if you tell me like the 58th most played game, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like at the end of the day, I think you can make, like, my whole point here is you can make single player games successful. Like you have to cut the length of them. That's pretty much like that's a pretty big amount of the things you have to do. The rest of it kind of falls in place. Um, that's how I would kind of address that. And I think in terms of like the future of gaming, like I said, it's cycles. Like there's always going to be multiplayer and single player, but there's kind of like booms in each one. Single player, the boom is the open world stuff, and I think that's getting old. Multiplayer, there was always multiplayer. Halo, there's but
Yep.
then when it became live service, I think people have turned against live service. Like I
Yes.
really believe that.
As an avid member of the Halo community, I can 100% tell you. Well, we know it's fact now because we've had developers come out and say it that while the campaign sold well, they did not make enough money off the live service because the fan base did not support it, and that's why a lot of changes took so long because they didn't have the revenue generated from the live service to put back into it and make the changes as quickly as they wanted to make it. And that just tells you right there that if you got a diehard fan base that are willing to rebel against something and vote with their wallet, Probably take notes, sports genre. You will get changes instantly. I feel 100% confident in saying that the next Halo game will not be free to play. Like it would not, the multiplayer will not be free to play. I'm almost very confident in that.
We'll see. That's the next year's Xbox live stream. All right. Well, we covered a lot of ground. PlayStation, Xbox, and live service. We should do a live stream one day just on live service, but again, I just don't have the interest as much. I appreciate you guys watching. Next week is going to be a very special show. I guess we can tease it now. I'll do it on Twitter as well. Next week is our game of the year or game of whatever you want to call it, awards show. I think we have 13, maybe we have 12, 13 or 12 categories. Sway and I both have our nominees. We'll have our winners. We're going to go over why we believe it. We got to give reasons, all that stuff. And I think it's going to be a really, really fun time. So next Friday, Game of the Year awards. Podcast Now is official. There's two of us, but I mean, you'll get mine too. So yeah, that's next week. And there'll be other streams. I want to do stuff of like looking forward to next year. I'm going to be ranking every game I played this past year. So a lot of good stuff coming. And then we're going to do like Suicide Squad stuff next year as well. So Sway, any final thoughts for the day?
Once again, I always say it, but thank you to the chat, man. Like y'all have been hyped the entire night, popping in questions in and out. Really getting us to think in different ways, think about things that we didn't think of. I just love the energy always. Alex is always great. Going back and forth. Chemistry is always on point. I always love being here. I always love doing this. So I'm always appreciative for it. And thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it greatly.
Of course. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping it. I would say you guys kept it mostly intact, which I very much appreciate. Yes. And again, we'll see you next Friday. We'll do the Game of the Year show. I got it. Like, what is the freaking word for it? Game of, like, they call it the Game Awards. So like Podcast Now's Game of the Year awards. That wouldn't make sense, right? I gotta like figure out how to freaking call this thing. How would you even call it?
Maybe.
What?
Game appreciation or game. Like
game ceremony?
Game ceremony.
I'll figure it out. Yeah, YouTube doesn't give notification. Next Friday at this time, when I started this live stream, is when we're gonna do the award show. Okay, so come back literally 24 or 7 days to the hour. All right. Thank you for being here. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on the next one.